Did you know, in ancient Rome, there was also a best leader who was considered a dictator? Julius Caesar was a Roman general and statesman. As a member of the first triumvirate, Caesar led Roman forces in the Gallic Wars before defeating his political rival Pompey in the Civil War, and then became dictator from 49 BC until his assassination in 44 BC. He played an important role in the events that led to the collapse of the Roman Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire. In 60 BC, Caesar, Crassus, and Pompey formed the First Triumvirate, an informal political alliance that dominated Roman politics for several years. Their attempts to amass political power were opposed by many in the Senate. Among them Cato the Younger, with personal support from Cicero. Caesar rose to become one of the most powerful politicians in the Roman Republic through a series of military victories in the Gallic Wars, completed in 51 BC, which expanded Roman territory significantly. During this time he invaded England and built a bridge across the Rhine. These achievements and the support of his veteran army threatened to eclipse the standing of Pompey, who had aligned himself with the Senate after Crassus' death in 53 BC. With the end of the Gallic Wars, the Senate ordered Caesar to step down from his military command and return to Rome. In 49 BC, Caesar openly defied the Senate's authority by crossing the Rubicon and marching on Rome at the head of an army. This initiated Caesar's civil war, which he won, leaving him in a position of almost unrivaled power and influence in 45 BC. After taking control of the government, Caesar began a program of social and governmental reform, including the creation of the Julian calendar. He granted citizenship to many residents of distant regions of the Roman Republic. He initiated land reform to support his veterans and initiated a massive development program. At the beginning of 44 he was proclaimed dictator for life, eternal dictator. Fearing his power and domination over the country, a group of senators led by Brutus and Cassius assassinated Caesar on the Ides of March 15, 44 BC. A series of new civil wars occurred and republican constitutional government was never fully restored. Caesar's nephew and adopted heir, Octavian, later known as Augustus, rose to sole power after defeating his opponents in the final civil war of the Roman Republic. Octavian began to strengthen his power, and the era of the Roman Empire began. Caesar was an accomplished writer and historian as well as a statesman. Most of his life is known from the records of his own military campaigns. Other contemporary sources include Cicero's letters and speeches and Sallust's historical writings. Later biographies of the emperor written by Suetonius and Plutarch are also important sources. Caesar is considered by many historians to be one of the greatest military commanders in history. His nickname was later adopted as a synonym for emperor. The title Caesar was used throughout the Roman Empire, giving rise to modern descendants such as the Kaiser and the Tsar. It appears frequently in works of literature and art. Julius Caesar was born into a noble family, gens Julia, on July 12, 100 BC. The family claims to have immigrated to Rome from Alba Longa in the 7th century BC after Rome's third king, Tullus Hostilius, took and destroyed their city. The family also claimed descent from Julius, son of Aeneas and founder of Alba Longa. Considering Aeneas was the son of Venus, this made the clan gods. This lineage was not yet fully formed in the 1st century, but the claim that the clan was descended from Venus was well known among the people. There is no evidence that Caesar himself was born by caesarean section. Such an operation led to the death of his mother, but Caesar's mother lived for several decades after his birth and no ancient sources record any difficulties in his birth. Despite their ancient pedigree, the Julius Caesars had little political influence during the mid-republic. The first person known to have had the title Caesar was a praetor in 208 BC during the Second Punic War. The family's first consulship was in 157 BC, although their political fortunes recovered early in the 1st century, resulting in 2 consulships in 91 and 90 BC. Caesar's homonymous father was quite successful politically. He married Aurelia, a member of the politically influential Aureliae, and produced, with Caesar, 2 daughters. Supported by his own marriage and that of his sister, the dictator's aunt, to the highly influential Gaius Marius, he also served on the Saturninian Land Commission in 103 BC and was elected praetor between 92 and 85 BC. He served as proconsular governor of Asia for 2 years, probably in 91 to 90 BC. Entrance to politics. While absent from Rome, in 73 BC, Caesar was made pope in place of his deceased relative, Gaius Aurelius Cotta. The promotion marked him as a well-accepted member of the aristocracy with bright future prospects in his political career. Caesar decided to return soon after, and upon his return he was elected as one of the military tribunes for the year 71 BC. There is no evidence that Caesar served in war, although the war against Spartacus was ongoing. During his term, however, he agitated for Sulla's disability at the plebeian court to be lifted and for those who supported Lepidus' rebellion to be pardoned. This advocacy is general and non-controversial. The following year, 70 BC, Pompey and Crassus became consuls and brought a law restoring the rights of the plebeian tribunates. One of the tribunes, with Caesar's support, then brought a law pardoning Lepidus' exiles. For his tenure in 69 BC, Caesar was assigned to serve under Gaius Antistius Vetus in hidden Hispania. His election also gave him a lifetime seat in the Senate. However, before he left, his aunt Julia, Marius's widow, died, and, shortly afterwards, his wife Cornelia died shortly after giving birth to his only legitimate child, Julia. He gave the eulogy for both at a public funeral. During Julia's funeral, Caesar displays an image of his aunt's husband, Marius, whose memory had been hidden after Sulla's victory in the Civil War. Some Sullan nobles, including Quintus Lutatius Catulus, who suffered under Mary's regime, objected, but by this time depictions of husbands in noble women's funeral processions were common. Contra Plutarch, Caesar's actions here were more likely in line with political trends for reconciliation and normalization than indicative of renewed factionalism. Caesar soon remarried, taking the hand of Sulla's granddaughter Pompeia. Dictatorship and rewards. Before Caesar was appointed eternal dictator in February 44 BC, he had been appointed dictator about 4 times since his first dictatorship in 49 BC. After occupying Rome, he designed this first appointment, largely to organize elections. After 11 days he resigned. Other dictatorships lasted longer, up to a year, and in April 46 BC he was granted a new dictatorship every year. The task given to him revived Sulla's dictatorship, Rei Publici Constituendi. However, this designation is not a source of legal force. In the eyes of literary sources, these titles were honors and titles that reflected the emperor's dominant position in the state, guaranteed not by extraordinary legal power or authority, but by personal status as victor over the rest of the Roman people. During the period after Pharsalus, the Senate showered the emperor with honors, including the title Praefectus Moribus, lit. Prefect of Morals, historically associated with the censor's power to revise the Senate's roles. He was also given powers over war and peace, taking over the powers traditionally held by the Comitia Centuriata. This power vested in the emperor personally. Remarkably similar were the symbolic honors of having the emperor's image on Roman currency, a first for a living Roman, with special privileges to wear royal garb, sit on a golden chair in the Senate, and erect statues of him in Senate. Public temple. The month of Quintilis, where he was born, was renamed Julius, now July. It was a symbol of divine monarchy and, later, became an object of hatred. Decisions regarding the running of the state, judiciary, legislation, administration, and public works were centered in the person of the emperor, with no regard or even notice given to the traditional institutions of the republic. Caesar's domination of public affairs and his competitive instinct to obstruct others alienated the political class and ultimately led to a conspiracy against his life. Julius Caesar's death. Julius Caesar was assassinated by a group of senators on the Ides of March, March 15, in 44 BC during a Senate meeting at Pompey's Curia at Pompey's Theatre in Rome, where the senators stabbed Caesar 23 times. They claim to have acted out of fear that Caesar's unprecedented concentration of power during his dictatorship would weaken the Roman Republic. At least 60 to 70 senators took part in the conspiracy, led by Marcus Junius Brutus, Gaius Cassius Longinus, and Decimus Junius Brutus Albinus. Even though Caesar was dead, the conspirators were unable to restore the Republic's institutions. The consequences of the murder led to his martyrdom, the Liberators' Civil War, and ultimately the Principate period of the Roman Empire. That's a review of the story of a leader in ancient Rome.